You're watching Rebuild Products.
I bought a 20-year-old traffic sign. So far, we've disassembled all its components, taken apart the frame, built a new subframe and platform. We've added job boxes, paneling, paint, and decals. And we're off for a bit of an adventure. We are going to go look at a rooftop tent right now. So I've been searching MarketFace for months, doing my research on the side, and it's hit and miss. I mean, if you want to buy a new one, they're anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on, you know, what you're looking for. I don't necessarily feel that I need a hard top. Those ones are kind of limited to the clamshell ones or the really quite heavy, complicated ones. And I don't want to make the whole camper too top heavy. Kind of like in a boat, you don't want to have a big hard top on your boat because it can change the center of gravity. So I want to keep everything as low as possible. That being said, I think I found one. I think I found one called the FSR Adventure / Recreation 55. And the good points on this one, it seems to me, when you're looking for these rooftop tents, you want them to be somewhat light. 100 to 120, 30 pounds is ideal. So that's easy to take off. Easy for me. As well as you want it to be able to open up quite quickly. You know, so you want it to open up within a minute or 2 minutes is ideal. And this one claims to open up in seconds, within a few seconds of taking off the soft top cover. So this is a soft top cover, but once you open this one up, it has these shocks that help, or these struts, gas struts, that kind of unlatch, and this whole thing just pops right up, which is ideal for my wife and kids. Ideal if you're, you know, doing some boondocking, you just need to open it up in some bad weather. So we will see. The gentleman that I'm buying it off of has one of these toy haulers. So he has his like ATV and his toys, and he puts it in this, you know, utility trailer, but it's called an X22. I am gonna see it, maybe, I'm not too sure, but essentially this was on top of that, and he has used it a couple times with his kids, grandkids, but other than that, he's just taken it off and it's been in his storage. And the really cool part is, after, like I said, a few months of searching MarketFace, I was looking at about $1,000 was my budget, and I know that's, you know, you're either going to get a poor quality secondhand one for that price, or you're going to get a steal, and that's usually because somebody just wants it gone right away, and that's what this case is. So he's basically put it in storage or storage locker. We're going to find out where it is, and he either doesn't want to pay for the storage anymore, or he needs the space and he wants it gone. In his ad, it was $2,000, and he had that ad up for, you know, weeks, and he's dropped it to $1,000 and I was the first one to do it, first one to get there, respond to him, and so far he's been a man of his word, holding it for me. I talked to him yesterday, I'm going today, and we will see. Hopefully it is all that it's cracked up to be. If it is, we're going to pick it up and we're going to put it in the garden for a day and or two, depending on this weather. And then I still have to make some brackets for the tent to sit on. So we're going to make some brackets on the next sunny day and then put this tent on there. So it's going to happen quite quickly if I get it. The other really cool thing about this tent, not only is the way it opens up, but it's also has this aluminum substructure, and it's got some cross braces with some T-tracks that mount to a roof rack. Obviously we're not going to have a roof rack on the trailer, but we're going to be able to, you know, reuse those T-tracks as some mounting points so that I can slide things back and forth. That's the idea. So okay, I'm probably about 20-30 minutes out from meeting up with this guy, and then I'll let you know how it goes. Well, we got the tent, and it turns out that it's even better than the description. I'm really happy.
Yeah, I waited through the summertime for the sun to come around.
And now that we have our tent in hand, we can then build our mounting brackets. I'm combining some Home Depot steel stair stringers with some rectangular tubing. In order to get the tent's T-track to fit, we got to cut down the stair riser and modify it just a little bit. And then we, blast it with some rust paint. Not only is it going to help last longer, but any corrosion from the mixed metals, it should stop. Now, my idea here is to make this bracket to distribute the weight evenly over the top of the trailer. I want to put the least amount of punctures or holes through the top. I just think it's going to last longer that way. So here, I'm really just trying to get 2 heavy-duty bolts through the center area where that cavity is, the storage cavity, so that I can get to the bolts and tighten them up underneath. And I'm adding some flat bar here just to add some strength when I really ratchet these bolts down. I'm using black Sikaflex here. It's going to help with the bolt holes as well as underneath the rectangular tubing. I just want little to no water to collect underneath. And I've had some really good results with Sikaflex. Now, one bolt is going straight through the top of the trailer. I have another one coming up from the rectangular tubing. Together, that should give enough, torque. It should basically be able to ratchet down enough to keep that bracket, that stringer from, popping off. I like the design of the stringer, the angularness of the bottom tubing of it. Kind of puts a directional force on those 2 bolts, so that's good, I think. And I think I've spaced this bracket setup and the next one we're going to build far enough apart that any wind or any torquing of the rooftop tent due to wind or movement should be minimal. I'm also planning on putting some supports in the corners. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but something to maybe ratchet it down a little bit more. But yeah. Now, in the underside of the rooftop, where the bolts come down, is where I'm just, ratcheting, really tightening up these bolts. It is going to be the one point where water could get in, so I'm really trying to butter up these washers and everything with Sikaflex. It's going to at least give me a few years before I have to worry about, hopefully, water coming through or rotting out the top or anything like that. Well, you missed it. There was a rainstorm, thunderstorm, winds, crazy winds last night, which blew down my pop-up tent and bent everything. So that's trash, but these things happen when you don't think ahead. This morning, my wife was able to help me before she went to work, and we got the secondhand rooftop tent put on the brackets we built yesterday, and I think it's turned out really well. So those kind of makeshift brackets that I made out of the metal stair treads that you can find at Home Depot just gave me the perfect spacing, I think, for what I'm looking for. I needed spacing between the tent and the top of the trailer for a few reasons. One reason, ventilation. I want things to be able to dry out under there. I want to see that it's all dry, and if it's nice and tight, then I don't know if I need to get to a leak or whatever it may be. this is good spacing. Now, primarily the reason I needed to keep things elevated over and above those reasons was that these doors to the containers have toggles, and these toggles latches are 4 inches tall, so it needed to be at least 4 inches tall, and that Home Depot stair tread that we turned into a bracket is 8 inches tall, or 7 and a bit, so it's perfect. Now, this specific rooftop tent came with these 2 aluminum extrusions, so they're like T-tracks but with 4-sided, and they are part of the unit. So I thought ahead and I spaced those brackets from yesterday just far enough apart that they're on the outside of the T-tracks so that we can utilize the nuts and the washers. And what that allows me is maximum flexibility to move the whole rooftop tent back and forth when I need to. You know, maybe one trip it needs to go forward more, store something on the back, or whatever I need to do. But while it's sunny, I want to take advantage of the sun because who knows, tomorrow it's probably going to rain again. It seems to be hit and miss lately. I need to get these side skirts done. This side is going to be one piece with the intent that maybe down the road I'll hinge it at the top and maybe even create some sort of rectangular box that I can throw in ratchet straps and stuff, some sort of locking feature. But not today. We're just going to create the panel today and bolt that onto the part of the frame. But we're going to create 2 of those on the other side, mirror image. However, we're going to split that one and hinge it because that will be an access door to get to the table. So I have a stainless steel table, commercial stainless steel table that I bought that has some folding locking legs. We're going to get rid of one set of legs, and then we're going to get some sliders. I have the sliders, really heavy duty ones, but we're going to bolt that to the table and then bolt that to the inner frame. And then that should be able to just slide out. The leg will come down, lock in place as a work area, as an eating table, multi-purpose. Building the side skirts is a bit of a process of back and forth, trial and error. I'm reusing the scrap form ply and I'm tracing it to the fenders. And the fenders aren't even, so I had to go back maybe 2 times and just to get that kind of arc that I was looking for. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to get covered. But I also had to cut out a little notch for the leveling jacks. Just give it a little more room for my hand. On the kitchen side, underneath the job box, I want to access a little area there for a table that we're going to pull out. So I'm going to cut the side skirt, and that side skirt, the smaller side will get just attached to some framing underneath, and then the other panel is going to get hinged. So we're going to use some spare diamond plate, some scrap that we had, and clad all of these little side skirts for durability and continuity with the rest of the trailer. Now the real nice thing about working with aluminum, at least this aluminum, is I can use all my woodworking power tools to cut everything. So after I've done shaping all the panels to mirror the form ply that we just made, then I knock down all the edges with a grinder and then a sander just to make everything nice and smooth. On the right side edge of the kitchen panel, we're going to put a hinge, and I'm using one of these hinges where you can take out the center pin. I'll show you that in a second and how cool that is for accessing the table. After test fitting the pieces and just making sure everything lines up and that the hinge that I'm about to sandwich in between lines up, then it's just a matter of taking some construction adhesive, putting it all over the inner part of the sandwich, and then drilling and screwing everything together. On the passenger side, we're screwing it into the subframe with some GRK screws. And on the kitchen side, we are going to hinge it on the right side of the trailer. I split the hinge in two, I took the pin out, and I'm installing one side here. I will put the other side and the pin back in a minute. And a few coats of this self-etching primer, especially on all the aluminum, on the outside and the inside. I get the hinges and the back of the door. I'm going to follow this up with some of the rust paint. It's an access door for the table we are about to build right now. Now I found this commercial kitchen stainless steel 48 by 24 table. It's got locking legs, and for my purposes here all I need is one set of the legs. So we're going to get rid of one set and use it for something else. But the cool part is the feet here are adjustable. The locking feature on this is robust in itself, but it's just tack welded to the table. So I just take out the grinder and I remove all these little tack welds. Now this little locking setup has some pre-drilled holes that is going to come in useful at a later date, but I got to cut all 4 of these little tack welds, and once they're all cut, which was pretty easy, I'm able to use a little bit of persuasion and just break free the rest of the weld that's holding on. And these are going to be great down the road for another project. I'm not sure what yet, but there you go. Now, I sprung for these 48-inch, 500-pound weight sliding door slides, I guess you want to call it. And these are beefy. I've never bought these before, but they're really cool. They lock out on the end. They've got all these holes to give you different options to screw into whatever project you're doing. So I'm just taking my square to line up the holes with the table, putting them side by side here. And then once I've got all the holes marked out, I'm able then to collapse the table, put it on its side. I find the center of the profile of the table, and then I take my punch and I just hit my punch, because this is stainless steel and it's not that easy to drill through. You have to have a really new good bit to make it look that easy. And then I marry up the slider and the table using 3/4 inch bolts, some washers and nuts. Screw everything tight together. I drilled about 5 or 6 holes because I really don't want this to bend and flex too much. So I think I achieved that. Now the door slides are 3 inches thick or wide, and I didn't want to faff around too much, so I created these little dummy blocks that are perfectly cut to the same size, and that creates a little bit of a pocket. And these will stay there forever, but it'll allow me to just put the drawer slides into these pockets and then slide them right in. Now screwing this in to the substructure, the framing, proved to be, let's just say, challenging. My big fat head, fat ass, and basically fat torso had to fit up underneath this table in order to get to the screws to screw them to the framing, and that's only about 12 inches. So I did it. I got to those back screw holes there, but it wasn't pretty, so I'm not going to share that with you. A lot of plumber crack, which we just don't need. But once I got it in there and installed, OMG. It worked out exactly the way I wanted it to. And the next stage is building out the cabinetry for the job boxes. On the passenger side, one box is going to be for small item storage, and the smaller box is going to be made to hold clothing. I'm going to build a simple rectangular box with a center shelf for our clothing cubes, and on the back of the door we're going to have a place for mirror, keys, miscellaneous stuff. And we're going to replace all the struts with some simple tailgate cables. And on the driver's side, we're going to create a kitchen pantry area to put all our dry goods, pots, pans, cutlery, everything's going to go in there. And in this last box is where we're going to house all of our electrics. So our battery, our inverter, fuse box, switches, it will all go into this box here. And I need to cut these old security padlock boxes out. They're not needed anymore. So I'm just going to try to cut the welds and make them as flush as I can to this outer lip. Now we've set up here outside. I'm painting the boat right now, so I really don't have much space, and I have to move the boat back and forth. As it's drying right now, I just want to leave it alone. But what a beautiful day to build some cabinet boxes. I've been squirreling away a bunch of plywood materials from my day job, and this is the perfect project to use them on. From back to front, we have some Baltic birch core with some white double-sided face on that. They call that dragon plywood, followed by the form ply that we built some of the shell with. And we got a bunch of that, and that's got the black faces on it. And then I've got some Baltic birch that's pre-finished with satin, so that's really nice. And then finally outside here I've got some 1/2-inch PVC board. I don't know the color scheme yet. I don't know which combinations that we're going to make the box or the back out of, or the shelving. I think once I take some measurements here, it will all come alive. It'll make sense. So I think that's the next step, is to take measurements and figure out the best use of each piece, because they're all a little different in size. I get a kick out of making these cabinet boxes. I like measuring them up and then cutting them. I like trying to utilize as much of the wood here as possible, so it's a bit of a game of taking the wood that you have and trying to maximize it. Now, when you're building even a simple rectangular box, you've got side panels, top panels, and a back panel, and then any of the shelving that you're going to have in between. I'm taking into consideration the plywood I have, as well as the dimensions of the job boxes. So that interior dimension, I'm trying to keep it as tight as I can. So within like a 1/4 inch gap to be able to slide these boxes in. And you know, once I've figured it out and I've kind of unlocked the puzzle and being able to cut all the panels for all the boxes, really it's only 4 boxes with shelves, then it's time for assembly. So I pre-drill all my edges. I use these right angle corner clamps just to assist me. And because I'm doing the pre-drilling first, when I go to screw into the edge of the side panels, I'm not getting a lot of blowout. And yeah, I use the clamp to get the top one screw in, and then I flush everything up with my fingers just to make everything nice and flush. And it isn't fine cabinet making. This is not fine joinery, so any mistakes you can usually just sand out. It's very forgiving that way. I'm just paying more attention of sanding this edge profile because I like the layers in the plywood. And I found a neat set of 4 wired drawers from Habitat for Humanity, and I'm just kind of sizing them up here. I needed to build these side panels for the drawer slides to be able to screw into, and the drawers are different sizes. So once I have these in place, I can then take the drawer slides and screw those on. I'm putting a center shelf in here just for a little more support. And once these are all screwed in place, then I can put the wire racks back on, and voila! We got ourselves a little pantry kitchen area to put all our food. And in the middle, I'm gonna end up putting our cutlery and maybe some plates in there. And I just said that, you know, I was trying to work within a 1/4 inch tolerance, but it ended up being a bit tighter. We're gonna say an 1/8 of an inch tolerance to get these in. Yeah, I learned on this one. The other ones, well, that's not true. You'll see. But I use the old persuader here, and frankly, I don't mind them being tight. It went in, and I didn't want to take the box out and cut it down. So it's not going to wiggle or jiggle while I'm driving, so that's a good thing. But it did take a minute to get this box fully seated in place. And once the box was in place, I was able to pre-drill and drill into some metal support structure that was integrated into the job box. Then I used some number 6 screws, nice and beefy. And I don't think this box is going to go anywhere anytime soon. You know, making these 2 larger boxes at the same time, you know, I did repeat the same mistake and made them very tight, but I'd say with exact precision, because it did take a bit to get them in, but they fit. I didn't have to modify them or the job box, so we're going to call this a win. Now, when it came to these work surfaces, I got rid of those gas struts. They're good for opening up a job box, but they're not really great for when you want to put any weight on top of these doors. So I came up with the idea of just using some of the plywood that I already had. I'm going to use white on the other side and more of this birch wood on this side. But instead of struts, I am just going to use some simple truck tailgate cables. They're meant to hold a tailgate of a truck, sit on it, so they're super strong. And I'm just gonna, screw it right into the wood here. Use some washers, embed it into the backside of the wood. Any of the bolts that are sticking out, I'm just gonna grind down to make it as flush as I can. Next, I took some construction adhesive and I just liberally put it all over the backside of this door. There's a center channel in the door that is made out of metal, and then I flushed that out with some wood, some plywood, and I'm just going to glue to that, and then I'm going to screw to that center backbone, if that makes any sense. And I think between the two, some perimeter screws, it's going to be plenty strong for what I need. Yeah, the next stage is to take those tailgate cables and screw them to the cabinet we just installed. I put 2 cables on, one on each side, just made sense to me. They installed really easy, and I really like the way they are a little flexible. One, it helps with opening these bottom drawers, because that was a problem with the gas struts, and one of the reasons I didn't just keep the gas struts there, it wouldn't allow me to open these bottom drawers. Another is they're super flexible. So when closing this door, I was having a problem with the gas strut not allowing the door to fully seal. So these cables work a charm. They're strong. They should be able to handle anything I put on this. And they definitely allow a little flexibility when I close the door and try to get a good seal. I'll give you just a little time lapse of me installing the 2 smaller boxes. And as I'm installing these panels on the door here, I'm just using the same technique I did for the worktop surfaces. I'm gluing and then screwing strategically so that it doesn't go through the front of the door. But these will never have more than a couple pounds of mirror or keys or whatever on it. So they're pretty much cosmetic. And you gotta tune in next week, guys, because not only am I gonna do a full walk around of this whole camping trailer that we built, but we're gonna take it out camping. We're gonna load it up with all the goodies and the gear that I've been accumulating throughout the build. And I'm gonna show you all the good and the bad, and more importantly, let you know what my family thinks of this wonderful little rig that we spent the last few episodes building. So I can't wait to see you on the next episode of Rebuild Projects.
See you next time. Oh, wow, 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 wow.